So this is lesson 3.5, part C, and we're on the bottom of page 310. We're going to do this example here. It just says to graph this. So we've got one polynomial divided by another one, and we're going to follow the rules in the middle of the page on page 310. And we're going to write 3x squared plus 7x minus 6. Okay, so the first thing we want to do as far as graphing this is we first of all want to find out where my vertical asymptotes are, and if there are horizontal, where they're at, and if they're not, maybe I've got some slanted or oblique asymptotes, that are on angles, and maybe I can find those. And then once I find those, I'm going to find the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts, and then plug numbers in for my x and spit out a y so that I can get a graph. So if you notice on the middle of page 311, that's what the graph actually looks like. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to find out where this thing crosses, or I'm sorry, we're going to find out where the vertical asymptotes are. Okay? So in order to find the vertical asymptotes, what we're looking for is when the denominator is 0, those are our vertical asymptotes. So if we can find numbers that will make this bottom here 0, we've got vertical asymptotes. Because if this is 0, 2x plus 3 over 0 is undefined, and that's what we need. So all we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to write this as 3x squared plus 7x minus 6, and we're going to set it equal to 0. So we're trying to find out what value of x will make that 0. Okay, so first of all, if you remember, we take the first term times the last term, and we get 18, negative 18, and we're looking for two numbers. Multiplied together give me negative 18, added together give me 7. And in this case, it's going to be 9 and 2. 9 times 2 is 18, 9 minus 2 is 7. So let's go ahead and rewrite 7x as, probably help if I write the right numbers there. Okay, I'm going to make it minus 2x plus 9x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, most of you would normally write the plus 9x first minus the 2x, but we want this to be a plus sign if possible for our grouping. So that's why I switched them. So we go ahead and group these. We factor out an x, and we're left with 3x minus 2. And this next one, we factor out a 3, and we're left with 3x minus 2. Always happens that way. So I've got an x plus 3 and a 3x minus 2. So x is negative 3. Or, let's go ahead and do the algebra here. 3x minus 2 equals 0. 3x equals 2. X equals 2/3. So there and there are my vertical asymptotes. So I'm going to put that up here. Vertical asymptotes. 2/3 and negative 3. Okay? So let's try to get rid of all this so that we can keep going and I have room. Okay, the next part of this is finding the horizontal or the oblique asymptote. And the way we do that is, if you remember, you look at the exponent on the first term here and the exponent on the first term here. If the exponent on the top number is less than the exponent on the bottom number, then my horizontal asymptote is the x-axis. So my horizontal asymptote is the x-axis. Okay, so that was pretty easy. And we'll graph this here shortly. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is find out where our graph crosses the x-axis. So in order to do that, we need to find the zeros of the numerator. Because what we're doing is we're trying to find out when y is 0, or when the function of x is 0. So the way we do that is we have to find out what number we can put in here for x that will make this 0. Well, what we find out is we don't care what number this is, but if the numerator can be 0, 0 over anything gives this whole thing a 0. So really all we need to be concerned with is what number can I put in for x here that will make the numerator 0. So that's all I have to worry about here. So I'm just going to write 2x plus 3 equals 0. Because when 2x plus 3 is 0, my y value is 0. So 2x equals negative 3. X equals negative 3 halves. So that's where my 0 is, my zeros of the equation. Is at negative 3 halves. So negative 3 halves, actually the x-intercept then would be negative 3 halves 0. Okay? And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to find out where this graph crosses the y-axis. So what we're looking at is the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, we need to find out what number we'll get here if we put zeros in for our x. Because if you remember on your graph, if we've got our graph right here, our y-intercept is when our x is 0, so that our y value lies somewhere on this line here. So that's what we're going to do for next, is we're going to see where it crosses the y-axis. So in order to do that, we need to plug 0 in for our x's, like this. Okay? So when we plug zeros in for f of 0, when x is 0, our y value then will be negative 1/2. So that's my y-intercept. Okay? So that is really all I need to find, are these 4 things. And then what I need to do is make a handy-dandy little xy here and plug numbers in for x, and it will spit out a y using this equation right there. So I put in, let's say I decide to use 2, so I'll put a 2 in there and then put a 2 in for my x values there, and it'll spit out my y, and I can continue graphing. So here we are. Let's go ahead and put this graph here. Sorry, it's freehand. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let's draw what we've got. Vertical asymptotes at 2/3. A little less than 1 there. And at negative 3. I have as a horizontal asymptote my x-axis. And I have as my zeros, I'm going to do this in blue, I've got negative 3 halves. That's where it's going to cross my x-axis, so at 1.5, negative 1.5. I also have as my y-intercept negative 1/2, so I know it's going to cross there. And again, I put in a whole bunch of numbers here and it spits out a y, and I'll get 2 graphs here. There. And there, I guess actually 3, because I have one here in the middle that will come down and go through here and then down like this. Okay, so that is my answer, what I have right here in blue, and my red with my horizontal and vertical asymptotes. So that would be example 8. 10 minutes later. So we'll keep going with 3.5 D as in dog.